Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. I think pretty much everyone's joined on, and thanks very much for all sparing us some time this afternoon. This afternoon, we're going to talk about the new import-export function within here. Now, just before I start, there's a couple of things I'll draw your attention to on the webinar itself. So you will have a control panel that will have popped up, and in the control panel, there's both a chat panel and a questions panel. Feel free to drop any questions or anything into those panels as we go on. And I'm just going to ask one quick question of Matt, who's on the call. Can you just make sure that you can see my screen and you can hear me talking, Matt? If you could just let me know that we're absolutely live, then I'll stop panicking. I have done one of these webinars before and talked to everyone for about half an hour and then realised no one could hear me. Okay, great. Sounds like you can all hear me. But as we go through, any questions, anything else, if you drop them into the chat panel, then that's great. We'll try to either answer those as we go along, or we'll try and answer those at the end. So today you've got me, Ken Miller. I'm the CTO at Panintelligence, for those who haven't met me before. And we've got Ming Huang, who's one of our lead developers. And the reason we brought Ming along is he's spent quite a bit of time doing the import export. He's the genius and the brains behind this piece. It's quite a big change to how the old import export worked. And essentially the point of import export is being able to take a data connection and everything associated with it from one dashboard and deploy it into another. Now, some of you will have used this in the past. And what you'll notice in here, the way you used to go into import export with the three little dots in the top right hand corner still is actually available in the product. We're not going to switch it off until we're comfortable that people have made the sort of move and the switch between the two areas. But you will notice that it now says deprecated in here. But essentially clicking on it still comes through and allows you to pick the export and the import. If any of you are still using the Flash application, then obviously it's still available within there. But we're at the point now where we would beg you now to get moving onto the HTML product. There's just so many differences between the two products now. It's absolutely worth being up to date. The other thing that's really worth noting as well at this point is that everything we're about to show you is version dependent. So really you need to be on the latest version, which is our June release at the moment, to be able to do this. Both Ming and I are running on exactly the same versions. So anything that you've done historically, you would need to upgrade Panintelligence, get onto at least the June release, and then you can export, import going forward using the new functionality. Okay, Ming, I'm just going to check you're out there. Are you able to chat back? And if so, we'll get cracking.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I've got everything set up on my side, I think. Can you hear me?
Can hear you loud and clear, Ming. Just good to have you here, because otherwise I would have got to the point where I need you and then it would have been all quiet. So the way we're going to do this is I've got a dashboard in front of me here. Those of you who've been on the new Pi Academy courses, you'll recognize these are the dashboards that you build within Pi Academy. So essentially it's a set of dashboards looking at a fictitious business where we're looking at marketing, sales, finance, and there's various tabs in here with various bits of information. Most important is they do include lots of the new chart types. So things like the card chart type, bubble charts, all of those things. And that's probably the most important reason for moving to the new import export. Not all of the old chart types or the new chart types are supported by the old Java import export mechanism, whereas they're all supported natively within the new import export. Okay, so really the scenario here is Ming's got himself an empty dashboard running, and we'll flip over to Ming's screen in a couple of seconds. But the sort of use case we're looking at here is I've got a dashboard that's all set up and configured and looks great. And Ming's picked up the phone to me and he said, I just want what you've got. Can I have that dashboard on my machine? And in reality, in real production environments, this might be where we've either got the dashboard on a test environment and we want to move it up to production, or whether you've got a dashboard that you sort of develop for your customers as kind of a gold instance, and you want to ship that out to all of your customers within here. Now, the way we do this is actually through the configuration screens. So I'm going to go into the top right hand corner and hit the spanner or the wrench icon here. And everything's going to be done from the data connection screen here. So in this, it's actually a little bit more like the old traditional Flex application, in that when I look at a different data connection here and I hover over, I've got a little button here. And if I hover over that, that's export data source. Now, bear in mind that, number one, I've probably been not on the phone for about half an hour and everyone's going to try and find me now. So I'll just silence my phone. But bear in mind here that the way that the import side of things works is the import button's only available when you've got a data source where you've got no data sources available open. So if you've got a couple of data sources open here and you want to get to the import button that Ming's going to use in a couple of seconds, you just need to make sure you've closed data sources. Export will work at any point. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to export my sales data connection. So I click this button here and I get an intermediary step. And this intermediary step is listing everything that will come out with this data connection. So obviously there's a connection itself. So here's the connection details. And there's all of the objects in that data connection, the objects, the tables, the joins, all of those things are coming out. These are all the charts that are going to be exported. And these are all the categories that if they don't exist on the site that we're going to go into, they will be created. Now, we're going to do a few of these exports to show you some different scenarios, but I'm going to keep it really, really simple at the moment. I'm just going to click export here. And when I click export, I get a little processing, and it tells me now that sales1 JSON has been created. So the old export used to be in XML, the new export is in JSON, and I can click and open that. So, I could either go and explore the JSON if I wanted to, and you see how that JSON's constructed, but I don't need to do that here, so I'm not going to save that. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to my email really quickly, and I'm going to email this JSON file through to Ming. So grab a hold of Ming here, and I click attach and browse this computer, and I'm going to go into my downloads, and I've got sales1 JSON, so that's the file that I've just created there. I'm going to choose that and say, here you go, Ming, try this, and say from Ken, and send that. Now, because it's just a JSON file, I can send it, I could distribute it, I could give it on a key, I could put it on a download site, I could do any of those things, but we're just going to keep it really simple. I'm going to email them to Ming, because we're obviously both at our own homes at the moment. Now, Ming, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over the screen to your screen now. So I'm going to make you the presenter. So if I just find you in this list here, I'm going to make you the presenter, Ming, and you should hopefully be able to show your screen, and we'll have a look and see what the import looks like.
Cool. So can you see my screen now?
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Ming. You can see your screen.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so I've got a screen with a dashboard that is pretty much empty. I've only got one category, which is called welcome, and then in here, let me just show you, it's pretty much got nothing in it. So it's a very, very empty dashboard, apart from my theme being different from what Ken has. So let's just grab the file that Ken sent me. Yeah, so let's download the file. So what I'm going to do is actually just get Ken's dashboard show on my machine. So let's just import that data connection then. I think it's this one. Then basically, I also have an intermediate screen to show me what I'm trying to import. So then basically you see things like tables, joins, objects, and then charts and categories. That's actually everything, and including data connection. That's actually everything that Ken just get me. And basically you see like an icon over here says U and a plus. A U means this item is used. That's why when I hover on it, there are certain things being highlighted. So when I'm hovering on this one, it says this item is actually used by the table down there, the table join down there. So that's this U, and then the plus means basically this is a new item. This item doesn't exist in the system. So that's that element. And then also you can tick and untick certain elements. So let's say this one, I'm gonna untick that. If I untick that, it already shows that certain items are gonna have problems because it's got dependency that we wouldn't be able to fulfill. So let me just start with something very simple. Let me just have everything imported. So then I press the button to import. It says processing, and then it takes a little bit of time, and then afterwards I've got a new data connection called sales. So let me just open that up. Over here, I need to enter the password. So I've got that already copied. If I paste that and then give it a quick test, it seems to be happy. So let me save that. So one thing that I would like to explain is basically on the exported file, you wouldn't have the password. So yeah, you sort of need to provide the password at the time after you import the data connection and the charts and categories along with the data connection. So then since I have just imported that, let me just go back to the dashboard. So now I have a new category which has a whole list of other things. So let me just quickly check them. So I've got marketing, sales, finance, and so on. So that looks pretty much like what Ken has. So yeah, so it's just importing that, and then you get the result. That's pretty much it. One other thing that I would like to mention is my system already has certain data. So this sales data connection is connecting to a database that I also have access to. So I have access to the data of this database. So the export and import doesn't carry the data over. It only carries the configuration of the dashboard, including data connections, charts, and categories. It doesn't carry the content of the database. So because I have the same database as Ken has to connect to, then basically we see pretty much identical data on our screens.
Fantastic.
So, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
So, and absolutely right, Ming. One of the really important things there is the fact that we're not moving any data. This is only parameterization. So it's the metadata that we're moving across between those systems. So the data is always protected. And you see that there are slight differences between mine's and Ming's, but that's because he's got a different style sheet in there. So, you know, it merges everything in. So works really nicely from that point of view. So the next thing we're going to do is if I just show my screen again here, in the next scenario, we've shared, and at the moment, Ming's environment is exactly like my environment. However, what happens if I go and make some changes? So I'm going to make a couple of really quick changes here to show you what that looks like. So in my data connection, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new object, and I'm going to use my churn percentage as an example. So I'm just going to pinch the value out of churn percentage here. I'm going to add a new column. I'm just going to do a manual one, and I'm just going to call this Ming, can you see me in there? Obviously not what you'd call an object in real life, but it will help us just create and generate that object. It's going to be a measure, and it's going to be a number object in there, and we'll keep 2 decimal places in there. So I've now saved that. So actually I've now got a slightly different data connection, but I'm going to go a little bit further as well. So I'm going to create a new category as well, and I'm going to keep with a theme. So I'm going to create my Ming hello category in here, and I'm going to save that, but I'll save it under the solutions section as well, so it's nice and obvious when it appears. And then if I go back to dashboard, I'm going to come into here and go to the Hello Ming tab, and I'm just going to add a couple of really quick charts in here as well. So if I go to my sales data connection here, I'm going to have my campaign name, and I'm going to use the Ming can you see me object, and I'm going to make that a word cloud. So I'm going to call this chart Ming1 and save that. And then over here, I'm going to create another chart. And again, I'm just going to use the sales data connection. So I'm going to go again on my campaign name here, and I'll keep with the Ming can you see me object. I'm going to put a really simple drill path on here, which drills down into my salesperson. And I'm going to use a slightly different chart type in here. So I'm going to use a variable great chart type. Some of you might not have seen this one yet. It's a new chart type in the current release. But on here, let's bring in opportunity count, and let's put on our data values so we can have a slightly different chart in there. And I'm going to call that one Ming 2. Now, to show you what's going on here, because obviously that chart's now working, I can drill up and drill down on there. I'm not going to publish a layout because we're going to show you exactly what that looks like as we go through to show you why you may want to publish layouts within here. But effective now, I've got a new category, a couple of new charts on there, no layout at the moment, and we're going to pass that over to Ming. So again, I go back to the dashboard configuration here, and I go to my data connection, and I've got my sales data connection. I'm just going to export. Now, I'm going to keep it really, really simple. I'm not going to tick any of these boxes again. I'm just going to click export straight away. Export that, it'll prepare, and it's now called sales JSON 2. So I'm going to jump back into email because it's the easiest way to send it to Ming here. So if I go through and go on here, Ming Huang, and attach. So let me just browse this computer and grab sales 2. Okay, new chart and new page. And again, and I'm going to send that across to you now, Ming, so you've got that winging its way towards you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the meeting, and let's make you presenter again, Ming, and if you show us what that looks like now on your side.
Oh, right. So I think I have received an email from Ken now. Yeah, brilliant. Right. So let me just download this file. Going back to my dashboard data connection screen, just to make it very, very easy to start with, I will just choose that file and then see how it looks like. So then basically this time is the same data connection, which shows me a lot less content. And then all of the things over here, they only say they are used, but they are not saying they are updated or whatever, they are not added. So then on the right hand side, I've got 2 new charts over here, and then they both have a plus over here. So then I've got a category as well. So yeah, you might wonder where all of those other things are, but basically you can sort of like click this button, which shows you all the items that are actually not changed at all in the system. So because they are not changed, there's no point to show them to start with. Basically, you can't pick an item and say I want to sort of like import this item as well, because it's identical to what you have in your system. So let me just go with something very simple. I can unpick all of this. Oh, okay, so it doesn't allow me to, yeah, so there are certain things being used by the charts. Apparently, it's the one called Ming, can you see me? So if I untick them, and then only tick this one, never mind, I'll tick all of them then. So yeah, let me just import this. So looks like it has been imported. So let's go back to the dashboard. And I've now got a new category called Ming Hello. And my category seems to be empty. And the reason for that is because when we import a category, it takes the default layout with the category as well. So the default layout is the one that you create and share with everyone in the system. But since Ken didn't create a default layout for me, that's why where I get the category, I don't see the exact same content as what Ken has. However, I do actually have the charts that he sort of get me. So let me just do something very similar. So let me split the sales. I'm gonna add the charts. So let's put this one over here. That's a word cloud one, and then another chart over here as well. And let's see, yeah, so you can drill down like what Ken did over there. So I'm actually gonna make my layout look a little bit different. And in here, I'm gonna just drop an existing chart into here. So then basically this time I'm gonna save that as my default layout, which means when somebody doesn't have a layout or whether they go to this category, they see this particular layout, this dashboard with 3 charts. So I have made some changes, and let me just pass that to Ken, and then let Ken import what I have onto his machine instead this time. How does that sound, Ken?
That sounds great. Anything that keeps you happy, Ming. So I've upset you by not giving you a layout, and you've improved it. So let's pass that back, and that's really important in that this can be a two-way street as well. So as well as me pushing my changes down to Ming, Ming can push those changes back up to me.
So let me just export this data connection. I could just pick the whatever chart that I want to send to you. Like for example, only this two, but instead I'm gonna just give you everything, and then I'll let you pick what you like. So yeah, let's do export. I've got a file downloading now, and then let's just reply this email. I'm going to drop the file in, and yeah, I'll just send it. Cool. So you should have my email now, Ken.
Fantastic. So let me show my screen again. So if I share my screen and go back to email, so yeah, I've got an email from Ming with sales JSON. So I'm going to download that file, and I'm going to go back to my dashboard now. And so at the moment, my dashboard is as I thought it was when I sent it to Ming, but I hadn't published that layout. So what I'm going to do is I've got that item from Ming. So because I've got my data connection open at the moment, I just need to close my data connection. I'm going to select the file to import here. With that selection on there, I should be able to find the sales JSON file in here. And I've got a lot, so I'll find the right one, click open on that. And that will now show me everything that's in here that is in. And actually I've picked the wrong file. So I'm going to just go and clean mine up ever so slightly. So I'm just going to go to my download folders. And Ming, you've done a better job of keeping your download section clean than I have. So I'm just going to go to downloads here, and I'm going to find my sales data connections, because that's one from a long time ago. I'm just going to get rid of all of mine at the moment, so I know I'm picking the right one. Always important. So if I get rid of those, and then I go back to the email and just download that sales JSON again, and check that it has downloaded it as sales JSON. It has indeed. So come back to the dashboard, and I'm going to select the file to import here, and in here just find that sales JSON. And I've now got just the items that I want. So I click import on there, it'll process, and it said it imported. And if I've done that correctly, when I now refresh my page, what you'll see is I'll still have just my layout, because that's my personal layout, but I'm able now to revert to the default layout, because the way the dashboard has preserved my layouts, it hasn't just overwritten it with Ming's. I can now go to revert layout, and I get exactly what Ming's got there. So really easily, Ming's been able to correct my mistake, make a change, and then pass it back up to you. So if you were ever exporting out, you found a problem when you imported it to a customer site, you could still fix that on that customer site and then bring that back up into the main area. And because it gives you that interface, it allows you to merge those changes through. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to make this a little more complicated. So actually, I'm going to take this Ming2 chart, and I'm going to edit it. And on its drill path, I'm going to add an item, and I'm going to go to something that was really problematic in the old import-export, which is I'm going to do a drill to chart. And in this case, I'm going to purposefully make this go wrong and show you how we would resolve this as well. So essentially, I'm going to take one drill step here, make it the default, and I'm going to say it's going to show a chart which I know Ming hasn't got. So I've actually got several data connections on my side at the moment, and Ming's only got one of them. So I'm going to take that and put the average years in job in there and drill down. So this chart is now actually drilling from one data connection, staying within the same data connection, but then drilling out into an entirely different data connection there to look at the average years in job. Ming's not going to have this on his side, but it's not going to cause us a problem. So again, I'll just come back into my spanner, go back to my data connections, and I'm going to export my data connection here again. So I'm going to export that, and it's going to call it sales1JSON here. Now this Ming, you might have to watch that I don't catch you out in the way that I caught myself out with the same file name. But I'll again go here to Ming and say, Ming Huang, here you go. It's even better. And I'm going to attach that file. So browse this computer, back to my downloads, and I'm just going to go to date modified because it'll be right at the top there. And I'm going to send that across to you, Ming. So now you're going to have a go at importing this, but you should get an issue this time, Ming, because I've sent you a dynamic drilling into a chart which doesn't exist. But what I'll do is I'll make you presenter again, Ming, if that's okay.
Cool. Yeah. So I do actually quite like to see what's better. Yeah. So we've now got an email from Ken. Let me just download that again, and then go back to my dashboard and try to import that. So let's see. This time I actually have a problem, Ken. So I have a chart that is highlighting in red, and then let's see what's going on with this chart. It does say it's missing a dependency. So this item depends on the presence of the items below. So it depends on categories, objects, and charts. And this particular chart is something that I don't have. So the chart is called average years in job. So Ken, I don't have this chart. Would you be able to help me to fix that then?
Yeah, so Ming has two options right now. Either he could still take the import if there were other items in there and untick the items which are erroring and just import what was working.
I'm pick that.
Yeah.
Then basically it says nothing to import. Obviously you only give me this one thing. So yeah, I can untick that, but there isn't anything for me to import.
Or what Ming can do. Yeah, exactly, Ming. Or what Ming can do here is what he really should be doing, which is getting very angry with me and phoning me up and saying, listen, the import you gave me talks about a chart for a data connection that I don't have access to. So let's fix it. And I'll come back to my screen here. I'll just share my screen again. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to fix this really simply by giving Ming the human resources data connection as well. And now if Ming then goes and exports the human resources and then re-exports the file that I sent him a couple of minutes ago, then we should be okay. So I'm just going to check here the file name that this is given it. So I've got human resources JSON2, which is a file that was just created there. That's the one that I'm going to send to Ming. So I'm going to come back to email, and because I'm nice, I'm going to say terribly sorry. I didn't send the HR data connection. Here it is. Import this first, then try again. And I'm going to attach the file. So again, that's human resources 2 file there. Send it, and I'm going to pray that Ming follows the instructions and forgives me. So Ming, let's come back over to your screen now. Apologies again for me not giving you the right chart there.
Cool. So let's take a look then. Let me just close this, and then that file is called. Let's make sure it's the correct file. I think this one is actually not. You give me a data human resource tool. Oh no, forget about that. Yeah, it's the right file. I thought it's a different one. So let's see then. Following your instruction about like importing a different file first. So yeah, based on what you said, I haven't got this connection, and I need to import that. And let's see. Looks like it does have the chart that I needed to use. So let's just import that then. So now I have a new data connection, and I need to put in my password again. So let me copy that and then paste that in. Cool. Looks like this is working. So I've got a new data connection now. Let me close that, and following your instruction, I need to also import the other data connection afterwards, which is, let me just try to remember what the name was. I think it's this email. So it's sales1. If I select sales1, I think it's this one. So now this time, the chart, let's take a look. Average years in job, it seems to be fine now. So let's give it a go then to see whether it fixes my problem or whether I get everything I need. So now let's go back to my dashboard. I still have all the charts over here, and let me try to drill down. It does drill down to the average years in job chart that you get me, Ken. So yeah, so that's brilliant.
Perfect. So we're going to do one final example here, and then we'll come over to questions. So I can see there's quite a few questions sort of building up in the question panel as well. So we'll give you one final scenario, and then we'll try.
Before that, can I just mention one thing?
Yeah, of course, me.
So if I did have that chart on my machine called average years in job, then what it could do is actually pointing to the chart on my machine instead, rather than a missing chart.
Yeah.
So so that's basically pointing to an existing chart in my system by matching the name.
And that's an important point, Ming. When the import happens, it's always using the name of the entity to do the matching. So either the name of the chart or the name of an object or the name of a data connection. That's how it's deciding to either overwrite, change, or use. So for example, if I exported the sales data connection and Ming does have the sales one in there at the moment, it knows it needs to merge. Whereas if he renamed his sales data connection to be sales Ming and then redid the import, he'd end up with an entirely new data connection. It's always the name that he uses to do the matching. I think that's right, isn't it, Ming?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay, so the final thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a scenario where I build a dashboard, but I only want to send one of the charts to my users. So I'm going to come into here and I'm going to create a new chart, and I'm going to call this one Ming just this one chart in here. And again, we're not too worried about what the objects are, so I'm just going to use my campaign name in here, and I'm going to use my turnover, so how many customers I get for each one of these entities within here. And I'm going to save it. And what I am going to do is I'm going to make sure this time I don't upset Ming again. I'm going to save my default layout before I do the export. Now when I go to the wrench and I do the export here, where so far I've just been hitting the export and not worrying about anything in particular, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select just this one chart. So sometimes you don't want to ship an entire data connection. You just want to ship one or two elements within here. And particularly that was a requirement that we sort of fed into the new import export, is in particular, sometimes it's just a page or sometimes it's just a chart that you want to export. So in this case, I'm going to select none up here, so nothing's checked. And I'm now going to just click on just the Ming. Now you see it does bring through any of its items that it absolutely has to have in place to work. So it will bring those categories through, but it's not this time going to take all those different charts. So even if Ming wanted to get hold of these other charts, I'm saying no, you can only have this one in this case. So when I click export, it will just do exactly what it did before, and it's created my sales2 JSON. So again, you're starting to understand the pattern here. I'm going to go into my email. I'm going to pick on, no, that's me. Why would I send it to myself? I'm going to pick on Ming. I'm going to attach the file, and I'm going to attach the JSON2 here and send Ming. So just this one chart. And then what we'll do is we'll come over to your screen, Ming, and you'll see that this time in the import, you've only got that one bit of content that I've sent across to you. So let's come back over and make you the presenter, Ming. Okay.
Cool. So
you. Perfect.
So brilliant. I've got the new email now, and I have just downloaded that. So let's see then. Select the file that I want, and then this time it only has one chart. And if I want to sort of like show everything, yeah. So the data connection is completely sort of like given to me, but I only have one chart for me to select, and then there's also a category as well. So let me just hide the ones that are identical to what I have on my machine. So basically, I was expecting one chart, while actually there's a category as well. And I can actually go and take a look at how different they are and so on. But I just remember because Ken published a layout. So because my layout of that category is different from Ken's, that's why it's ending up in here. Allow me to pick that category to import as well. I can actually choose to not import that. And this time where I'm picking, it doesn't show me that there's a dependency problem because my system already has this category. So in fact, what I'm gonna do is actually just picking the chart. I don't want Ken's layout. So yeah, let's go back to my category and then let's make my changes. And let's pick that chart. So just this one chart. Yeah, so I've got the chart on my machine, but I don't have the category that can get me because I intentionally not using his category. So yeah.
Fantastic, and that's where, you know, I've done it for a chart there, but you could do it for parts of a data connection as well. So you could send out one object if you create an object, and then rather than someone having to pull all of that content in there, they'll only get that one item. But certainly it's really useful for when you've got a whole library of charts, but you don't necessarily want to share those with everybody. You can actually just pick the parts of it that you want to share now. So
can I just mention one other thing?
Yeah.
Since I have just imported that, and then I just load the file again, this time it doesn't show me any chart for me to import because my chart on the machine is 100% identical to what's coming. So if I hit this button, I still see this chart. If I hide the content, then basically that chart is gone because I have already imported that. And the category is still there for me to import because my machine has different category content as what you get me.
Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely right. So by default, it will only ever show you the differences, which is why they're showing. And that little star in the top left-hand corner says, okay, show me everything, not just the differences. So that's where it shows you the complete list of everything that's on that import within there. Okay, so thanks very much, Ming. That was everything that we were going to show there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the questions. Let me jump back onto my screen here, and we're going to run through the questions that have been sent through to you here. So I'll try and go through these in order. So I've got the first question here from Gary. So forgive me, but you don't have to be forgiven for anything, Gary. So you're sending your dashboard layout to another user, I assume, on a different network. They must have exactly the same database. So yeah, absolutely. So not the same data within their database, obviously, but this metadata structure is expecting someone to have a database that looks like this, you know, of a similar type. It could go to a different, from Maria to an Oracle or something like that, but only if all the syntax was the same. Essentially, you're expecting all of this to then work on that customer site. So it's one of the things that Ming was saying at the beginning, to make sure that we've got this working between Ming and I. We've both got the same database, and it's a database called Demo that's sitting running on both of our machines. So when Ming imported it, there was no other messing around to do. He just was able to refresh against his local database. But yes, it does need to be the same style database in the same structure. So it's for using with customer data and working on it remotely. It's all about moving parameters from one site to another. So the most common scenarios are where you've built something in a test environment and you want to move it up to a production environment, or for a lot of our partners where they ship content, predefined content to their end users, where you've sort of made amends to your gold dashboard, if you like, that content that you control and build internally when you want to push that down to your customers. But you can also use it in the case of when you've done some work on a customer site, you can do an export and bring it back into your own centralized repository within there. The other thing you can use those files for is for maintaining version history as well. So doing an export of the data connection and holding that in a data source control system. But it's all about moving those parameters from one site to another. What it does not do is it doesn't move any of the user configuration. It's all about the data connections, the categories, the charts, and the layouts. That's what it's effectively moving across. And if you really want to know that, you can examine the JSON. You'll see what's in there. Okay, so another question here then is, if someone was using the default layout, would their view automatically change when updated? Yes, absolutely. And that goes for the special sort of chart viewer user as well. So anyone who didn't have their own layout and had the default layout would have automatically got that change. So in the scenario that Ming and I went through, I did have my own layout, which was different from the default. That's why I had the little box up on my blue panel to say that I could either export or change my layout. And that's why I needed to pull in Ming's layout when it came back in there. So it won't override it if you do have your own layout, which is different from default. But if you're on the default layout, it would have just reverted straight to what Ming sent through. Okay, can you export multiple data connections to the same export import JSON file? You can't at the moment. Now that is something that we have discussed, and it may be something we make a change to at the moment. But right now with the export import, it is a matter of exporting those individual files. And as you will have seen, if you do have dependencies between those different data connections, just like we did in the last example there, then you need to make sure that you import those in the right order to make sure they come in properly. But yeah, they need to be separate JSON files. So the next question is, we OEM Pi as part of our solution and prevent customers seeing the data connections configuration. Can this functionality be used in any other way or through the API? Very soon, this will be exposed through the API. So we haven't done that work yet, but I believe over the next couple of sprints, that work will be done so that the imports can be done using the API. The old export import functionality is available through the API, and we know we've got some people who roll that export import out as part of their release mechanism, things like that. If you do that, you'll have to wait another couple of releases, so another couple of months, and then that will be available through the API as well. What we're trying to do is just make sure we get this import export through the beta program as quickly as possible. And at the point where we know there's not going to be any major changes, we'll be able to put the API over the top of that. It's a fairly straightforward process. You can really help us, though, by testing the new import export. The sooner we're happy with the mechanism of export import, the sooner we'll be able to put the API over the top of that. So it's something you can help us with. But again, if any of those things are of concern, then just get in touch with us either directly or through your account manager.
Can I also just mention one thing related to this? And I would actually like to share my screen as well.
Yeah, go. So let me flip it back to you.
Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, it's just coming back to you now, Ming.
Cool. So I have just got this file open on here. Let me just explain a little bit about this file. So this is the JSON file that we have just exported. There's something that we said over here about this is in alpha release. It's just to help people to understand the state of this particular feature. So earlier when Ken sort of like started introducing this new feature, he mentioned that our dashboard, so basically Ken's dashboard and my dashboard, they are in the same version. So we are both on the June version, June 2020 version, and that's very important from the export import perspective. So because at the moment we are actively working on this part. So yeah, so the underlying data structure might be different in different releases. That's why when you export the file, it can be only used by the same version of the dashboard, and that's very, very important. And that's also said over here. So yeah, it just deserves a little bit of explanation about that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ming. And as this goes forward, what you're not going to have to do is do any file manipulation or changing anything, but you will have to make sure, certainly through the alpha stage, that both of your sort of source dashboard and the target dashboard that you're importing into are on the same version over the next couple of releases, just while we go through and change this. I think, and hopefully what you'll find if you have a go at the new import export, it's really, really great. It's really solid. We've done an awful lot of testing internally, and we've got quite a few alpha partners out there using it already, and the feedback's been really, really positive. I think those of you who have struggled with the old export import will understand and know why we sort of took this opportunity to rewrite it. So it's been rebuilt from the ground up, and it is much better. So we're moving as quickly as we possibly can towards that being the only way, and sort of deprecating the old export import completely. Okay, so I've got a question from Piers here, which is saying, don't know whether I missed it, but does the import cope if I have a chart category that I've defined and I try to import it and it's got something with the same name, would it overwrite it? And the answer is yes, it will overwrite, because it uses names to match between the two. So in the scenario that we did, if it had found employee duration as a chart in the new site, and that was an entirely different chart, we effectively would have replaced our link to that and linked to the chart with the name that we've got. And similarly, if there had been a chart in the export called employee duration, it would have overwritten that chart with the new item. Now, there's a couple of things you can do if that's going to be a problem. One of the things you can do, and it's one of the fields which not many people really use in here, is you can make sure your categories have got a very distinct name. So a lot of our partners will have some kind of code that they put in front of the name of the category, and then actually the label becomes the bit that the end user sees. So you can then make sure that these things are made and become distinct from that point of view. And you can do that at a category level, and you can do it at an object level, but you can also do it at a chart level. And to do it in a chart level, this is where you might have BR456, a unique code that you have for that chart. And then in the attributes section, you actually make sure that you replace the chart title with the chart title, so that to the end user it looks exactly the same, but you can have these sort of codes that you keep on the categories, charts, data connections, and objects that make sure that you won't have a problem with someone accidentally having another chart with the same name of it, and you can have it defined quite clearly from that point of view.
So Ken, is also, I think it's also worth mentioning that at the time you try to import, it will already mark that particular item to be overwritten. So if you already have that chart in the system, and then you're trying to import the same chart name, a chart with the same name, then it will mark that item to be something available in the system. That's when you see the checkbox over there for you to tick and untick.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can decide whether you do or don't want to import it, but a combination of either not accepting those changes because it's going to overwrite a local chart, and you can, as Ming showed, you can even go through and see exactly what the differences are. So it'd be really obvious that it's going to overwrite something that you don't want it to overwrite, or just making sure that you use distinct names and then label things over there. Both of those should help you sort of work around any problems where you might accidentally overwrite a client report if you're pushing that down to their site. I've got another couple of questions as well. So next question is about styling. Yes, the dashboard, everything that you export is independent of styling. So if you're importing from one site and it's very heavily branded, and then you push it into another site, it will pick up the chart colors and it'll pick up the local branding. So as you will have seen on Ming's got sort of nice sort of curvy boxes around his charts, and he's got a very different color palette to the color palette that I've got on my machine here. So it looked very different when it came into Ming's site, and that's because it was still carrying on using his local themes within the application. And then the final question I've got. I'm sorry.
I think it's also worth. I think it's also worth mentioning that if you define the theming on the chart level, so if your chart specifically have some styles set up, we call it chart level styling. So yeah, Ken is going to show you what I'm talking about now. So in here, we've got some chart level styling to sort of like style this particular chart. And also, you need to have a particular permission in order to have access to this area, by the way. But if you have that set up on this chart, then basically this chart is going to go out to another database with the styles that you define for this chart, because you specifically say this chart has to follow such styles.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the one exception to the general styling, is if you put specific overrides of style sheets on a particular chart or table or element, then it will actually preserve that through the export as well. So it should in all cases pretty much do what you're expecting it to do. Really, you shouldn't have too many problems with it. The final question I've got here is about coverage of new chart types. And the dashboard, absolutely, it covers every single chart type within here. So all the new chart types, so some of the ones that you've seen come along on the latest releases, like donut, variable pi, bubble, scatter, word cloud, sunburst, tree map, in particular card chart type, a lot of people are using that, absolutely get exported. And what's really important as well is things like analytical models also get exported. So when I sent this across to Ming, I had a full Pi Analytics regression tree within there, along with some predictions and some outcomes built into that. And all of that was included in the migration. So Ming will have got that on his dashboard. Now, again, he may have different data in his database, so his actual build of the model may end up looking slightly different, but the predictions and the piece will be exactly as it is from my exported site. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Now we've done our best to answer those questions as we've gone through. If at all you need any more information, or you have any other queries about anything that we've shown you, we've been using the June release here today, so the latest release on our download site. That's the version that we've been using. Please feel free to go and have a go. We'll be putting this video up somewhere after this call. So it'll probably go on the website, and we've got the attendees list, so we'll send you all a link to let you know where that video is. Should you want to watch this again, or should you want to share this with somebody else? But all it really says is for us to say, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully it's been useful. Any feedback on the import export, if you go through support, we'd really love to get that. Ming, thanks so much for your help on that. That was absolutely spot on. I think you did a much better job. It was only me who managed to confuse everyone with picking the wrong import file when I was trying to import there. So thanks very much. And we look forward to talking to you on some future webinars. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.